One afternoon in 2011, Dr. Gary Nolan was working at his office at Stanford University when he received a visit from two strangers.
They literally showed up unannounced and said, "Hi, we're here. I work with the CIA," and the other was a aerospace organization executive. And these are the medical cases we'd like your help on.
It was a meeting that would soon alter the course of his life. Dr. Nolan is one of the world's leading blood pathologists, and today serves as professor in the Department of Pathology at Stanford University's School of Medicine. His specialty is developing instrument platforms and techniques to more effectively study blood-related issues. His work also earned him a nomination for a Nobel Prize.
And they didn't come to me because I had any special experience in UAP or the phenomena. They were doing complete medical workups on this cohort of individuals, about 100 individuals from the military and the defense establishment and the IC and diplomatic corps. And they'd asked around and they said, well, we want to do blood analysis for inflammatory events. Who's the best person we can talk to? And they said, well, you got to go talk to this guy Nolan at Stanford. He has the world's most advanced instrument for looking at blood and giving you a detailed report on these things. And that's when they showed up in my office and asked me for my help.
As the two individuals would explain to Dr. Nolan, the patients that were experiencing unexplained issues in their brains had come in contact with, quote, exotic materials that originated from what the military now calls unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Didn't become about UAP until about 30 minutes or so into the discussion. And that's when I began to look around to see if there was a candid camera somewhere pointed at me from one of the other windows. What got me intrigued was the data that they showed. I mean, they didn't just say, hey, these things happened. They took out MRIs and they showed me the specific scarring within the brain that had occurred. And then they gave me the detailed medical reports of some of these individuals. And so I helped them. I went out and interviewed some of the individuals personally to make sure that, I sort of feel like you have to get involved individually about some of this. I flew out to speak with some of these individuals. And I was convinced that they had experienced something real.
After Dr. Nolan's visit from the Pentagon official and government contractor, he got curious, and he decided to further investigate claims of secretive government crash retrieval programs. After talking with insiders who claimed to work on these programs and whistleblowers inside of the military, he made a startling conclusion. The U.S. government is in possession of alien craft and is actively attempting to reverse engineer them.
If you believe the people like David Grush and Carl Nell, Eric Davis, and some other people that I know personally, they're in possession of a craft, multiple craft.
It's an idea that UAP whistleblower Lou Elizondo validated during a recent congressional hearing.
Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies.
Nolan claims that Black Project funding has allowed defense officials to create technology that will alert them to incoming crafts.
We have an amazing detection system.
Okay.
Satellites that you've spent billions and billions of dollars on putting up. When stuff goes awry, they get there first.
Dr. Nolan even suggests that the U.S. government may have technological means to intentionally bring down alien crafts to collect them for the reverse engineering programs.
Let's say that we have means to bring them down. And let's say that some of the things that are brought down were brought down purposefully. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. Here you have a device which, at least our best understandings of how it could operate from an academic standpoint, it's warping space, right? So some of the best theories about how this works I know it sounds Star Trek, and Star Trek was maybe ahead of its time or something, or who knows. But some of the best theories from physicists who legitimately talk about this, your audience could go look up the Alcubierre drive, a Mexican physicist who sort of started it off and came up with the right field equations that would suggest it was possible, but the amounts of energy required are impossible to access, right? People have brought down the levels of energy required to something, still outside of our capabilities, but not astronomically impossible. Okay, but you're warping space. Maybe all you need is an electromagnetic pulse of sufficient energy, and that would just disrupt the field. Look, it doesn't take much more than a blast of wind to push a car off the road.
Yeah.
So, similarly, maybe a blast of the wrong electromagnetic energy or a lightning strike would bring the thing down.
Ladies and gentlemen, hot salt from Firecracker Farm is the real deal. It's not just heat, it's flavor that elevates everything that you cook. The best thing to happen to food since fire. That's a bold statement, but I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. It's delightful. One of the best things about this brand is there's a real person behind it. His name is Alex, and he makes these in small batches, so it's not always easy to get. You don't want to miss out. All of the flavors are great. I have tried all of them. You really can't go wrong. Seriously, try it on everything. Steaks, vegetables, everything in between. I love cooking. I like cooking at home. I don't like putting sauces and overbearing things on the things that I cook, so I tried a little bit of the salt. And if I'm being honest, I tried a little bit too much the first time. It was a little spicy. So I had to back it off a little bit, and it made everything that I cook at home taste better. So it's an easy addition to the things that I already make. It tasted amazing. I was using the product for well over 6 months before Alex reached out to present as the sponsor for Change Agents. Easy peasy. I was already doing it. No additional time. A touch point with it in my personal life. I can talk about it from personal experience. Love what the brand stands for. Love what the brand was founded around. Enjoy the person who founded the brand. I mean, this is a match made in heaven. Get out of the comfort zone of what you can get in the grocery store. Go online to Firecracker Farm and use the code IRONCLAD for 15% off of your first order. You're going to be shocked at how much more of a flavor it brings out in what you cook. The extent of the crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs remain unknown, and that's by design. The reason why this work has long gone unreported, according to Dr. Nolan, is because these funds are impossible to track, as are the true numbers of people working on UAP in compartmentalized special access programs.
But, your other point was, why aren't there 500 or 5,000 people? Well, there actually are behind the scenes working on this stuff, right? At least that's what you would conclude if you speak to people like David Grush or Carl Nell or half a dozen other people that I know, some of whom literally work on the programs that they claim are really reverse engineering, hidden within black programs. This is an interesting structure of how it operates. You have the open budget, which of course has a lot of top secret information of things that are being done. Then there's the black budget and the black programs, which are barely discussed and are hidden under very abstruse and abstract names. And then literally the way that this seems to operate is that within the black programs, there are subsections and people who are operating on the so-called reverse engineering, right? But even the black programs don't know that that's what these people are working on. So it's layered within levels of special access programs that are nearly impossible to understand. And this is where, David Grush came forward and others have come forward as whistleblowers to say the money is being misdirected. They're lying on how it is that the money is being spent. Now, this should infuriate anybody in the public to think that your taxpaying, your taxes are going towards programs which you don't understand how the money's being spent. First of all, for all you know, it's being spent and going into somebody's pocket and they're buying a yacht, right? So maybe you should know that the money's actually being spent, or they're not buying, $500 toilet seats.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that kind of auditing that needs to go on. But then let's say that some of this stuff is real, right? Okay, so is the money being wisely spent to understand what the technology might be? right? And is it only being spent to determine whether or not it can be used as a weapon? Or are there efforts, and this is where my interests come in, are there efforts to understand the technology in ways that it helps U.S. economy first, right? Are there discoveries about how technology or instrumentation might be created that could be used for legitimate public commercial purposes, right? For the United States first, and then for the world. I mean, look, I am a patriot. That's what I want to see, to make sure that the money that we're spending is being done not just for military purposes, and I'm fully supportive of the military, but then when it's not obviously usable by the military, that doesn't mean you keep it like a dragon's hoard of gold. There might be ways that you can use it publicly to help humanity at large.
Nolan's concerns are shared by UAP disclosure advocate, Congressman, and unidentified anomalous phenomena caucus head, Representative Tim Burchett. He claims that the military has been actively working with defense contractors to secretly reverse engineer craft that did not originate from Earth for a reason. Because the research is being done by private aerospace companies, it isn't subject to the Freedom of Information Act requests, making the breakthroughs secret and the spending virtually untraceable.
All this information has been passed on, I think, to corporations that have contracts with the Pentagon but are not FOIA-able, which means Freedom of Information Act. They cannot seize their documents and put them out. So there's a long trail, and there's a lot of reasons why it's not out there, but I think America needs to know we pay a lot of money. I tell people it's not about little green men and flying saucers. I mean, ultimately, that's what we'll find out. But ultimately, we should want to know where all this money's going.
The blurry lines between the work of contractors and the military prevents not only financial transparency, but also hampers insights to what exactly these companies are working on. Another recent hearing related to UAP led to an awkward exchange between Representative Nancy Mace and whistleblower Lou Elizondo, who is visibly uncomfortable discussing the work of these black projects.
In terms of material that's given to private contractors, is certain material given to certain contractors because of their experience? So, for example, if it's related to submerged and undersea propulsion, would it go to a general contractor like General Dynamics?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely correct. Different contractors have different levels of expertise.
What's Lockheed's expertise?
Aerospace, ma'am.
In the UAP space, that's all that they would do submerged.
No, I didn't say that, ma'am.
Okay.
Lockheed Martin and others do quite a bit of work both in our atmosphere, in space, and even underwater. There are certain efforts to. It's a tough question you're asking. You put me on the spot here.
I'm looking for the answer.
Yes, ma'am. No, they are involved in a lot. I would rather let Lockheed Martin explain the different domains that they are involved with. Probably I'm not authorized to discuss that, but they are involved in a lot of different areas and domains.
There was also testimony in the same hearing that seemed to suggest that the partnership between private contractors and the military aren't always friendly. At the hearing, Elizondo cryptically alluded to a situation in which the CIA intervened to prevent a private contractor from, in quote, divesting itself from exotic materials.
Does any branch of the United States government or defense contractors possess technology?
Sir, there's documentation that I believe was submitted for the record that was approved for release by the U.S. Pentagon, by the Department of Defense Office of Pre-Publication Security Review, and it states one of the reasons why my predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
Was it successfully collected?
It was not. What happened is that there was an aerospace contract company that requested to divest itself of the material that was collected in the 1950s. Right. Unfortunately, that didn't actually occur.
So let's dive into that. That's the Bigelow Aerospace, correct? So
yes, sir.
There was a journalist, Christopher Sharp, who said that there was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked. Why it was blocked, I can only surmise. I was part of some conversations later on with some of those contract personnel where they had told all of us that is accurate.
Elizondo's testimony seems to confirm that the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, a former Pentagon Special Access Program, also referred to as OSAP, was attempting to have exotic material transferred from Lockheed Martin, who apparently really wanted it gone.
On one occasion was asked by Representative Tim Burleson of Missouri about a very important story, and I'm glad Burleson mentioned this. It is the claim that during the 2007-2008 OSAP years, it's the first iteration of what became ATIP, that there was an attempted transfer of non-human technology from Lockheed Martin to Bigelow Aerospace. Now, Bigelow Aerospace was the primary contractor to the OSAP program under the DIA. Robert Bigelow is very good friends with Senator Harry Reid. Reid was really the sponsor of all of this OSAP program. And so what we learned about a week before the hearing, in a bit of very good journalism, was that it looks as though Lockheed Martin was going to transfer non-human technology to Bigelow Aerospace, and that it was blocked twice by a senior CIA executive named Glenn Gaffney. So I was very glad when Burleson asked Luis Elizondo, who was at OSAP at this time, if he knew about the story and was it true. And Elizondo essentially said yes. This was a really important confirmation. He said, from my, a lot of qualifications, of course. My understanding is that it was blocked. Why, I cannot surmise. He wouldn't want to put himself out there. But he gave, I think, very good support to this story, and in fact, gave a lot of support to it. Go through the transcript. So this is interesting, and it makes me think, what was the original purpose of OSAP? It wasn't just a study of the Skinwalker Ranch. It wasn't just a study of UFOs in general. It was very possibly an attempt to unburden Lockheed from its cache of NHI technology, because apparently, according to this account, Lockheed didn't want it anymore.
Why wouldn't Lockheed Martin want to keep a cache of technology created allegedly by non-human intelligence? Though Elizondo refrained from speculating, one possible motive could be the reason that those two strangers showed up to speak with Dr. Gary Nolan back in 2011. Contact with the materials caused unexplained injuries. It was another point of discussion at the congressional hearing, though the military does not confirm it is in possession of materials from UAP crash retrievals. It is paying victims for mysterious injuries incurred while dealing with them.
In your book, you mentioned government employees who've been injured by UAPs placed on leave and receiving government compensation for their injuries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How can the government deny we have recovered craft if they're paying people because they've been injured by recovered craft?
Ma'am, that's a great question. That's why I think we're here again, because I've seen the documentation by the U.S. government for several of these individuals who have sustained injuries as a result of a UAP incident.
If Elizondo is telling the truth, then there is reason to believe that these special access programs have been operating since at least 1940. And some experts suggest that the nature of the encounters seem to suggest that the technology didn't originate from Earth.
We all know there is black budget tech. There is the ours, theirs problem. This has been discussed for many, many generations now. Are these things built by us or not us? I gave you a really long-winded answer, but I would just say there is a certain proportion, I think, that is ours. Yes. And there's a definite proportion that is not ours, and which makes sense. Let's say you're Harry Truman. It's 1947. Your top scientists and generals tell you, sir, we've recovered something that doesn't seem to come from these parts. Oh, yeah, and a couple of alien bodies, too. So, you have to now decide, what do I do with this information? Do I tell the world? Even if you may think you want to, your advisors will tell you all the reasons why that's a bad idea. You tell the world you've got this tech, now you got the Russians to deal with. They're trying to get nuclear technology. You don't want to share that. Why would you want to share something as exotic as alien tech? No. So what you do is you create a very deeply classified program. You make sure you manage the media. You make sure you manage the politicians. You make sure you manage the academic community, all of that. Yes, that's easier to do than some people think. And then you maybe review your policy every few years. But the fact is, there never turns out to be a good reason to give up the secret. It becomes bigger and deeper and better and more profitable too, because now you start handing things off to private industry, like Lockheed Martin in the 50s and like Raytheon and like Boeing and all the others. And now they're working with you, and now they're developing the future. And now when you retire from your 3-star, 4-star position, you go to work for them in a senior executive capacity, and your clearances go up and better, and you're making more money than ever before. So it's a great gig for a lot of these people, and I think that's what we're looking at. It's a lot of it's become privatized.
Dr. Nolan claims that strange, quote, metamaterials that would have been impossible to engineer at the time were found at these early crash sites. These materials could, theoretically, be weaponized.
Metals with extraordinarily hard and heat transmissive capabilities, right, that are near superconductors of heat, if not electricity. That's probably the ones that I know the most of. Engineered materials that seem to be engineered at the atomic level, that are, people have called them metamaterials. I mean, there's one of them that's very public, that I'm not sure about the provenance of or the capability of, but there's others that I'm aware of that, people just don't understand first, how is it that they could make something like that? How would it be made? Because it was found at a time when we couldn't make something like that. And it is structured in a way that, I mean, it's even today difficult to understand how some of these things are structured and made.
If Dolan is right, that there have been reverse engineering programs going on for decades, then much of what is being seen now was made by the U.S. military, private contractors, or, concerningly, foreign adversaries.
I think it's more than that, I think it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional or any of that. I do think, and it's not that, a skeptic over here, I do think there's something going on. I just think it's like 1% or less.
Here is UAP researcher Chrissy Newton.
But I also do think that foreign adversaries, especially China, are a lot far advanced than we are. We know that they are when it comes to quantum computing, right? And all of that is very, very scary. The RAND reports that have come out recently says that China is way above quantum computing than we are. And to be honest, if they crack it, they can wipe out all of our systems, right? It just can change everything for us.
Lou Elizondo shares Newton's concerns and says that these secret programs have been going on in and outside of the United States for decades, meaning the technology is likely now extremely advanced.
Remember, I grew up at the height of the Cold War, where it was this winner-takes-all proverbial chess match between then Soviet Union and the United States. And by the way, despite what people think the Cold War being a Cold War, it was pretty hot. There were proxy wars going all over the world, right? And so what we didn't want to do is tip off to the Soviets what we knew about UAP, or worse, maybe what we didn't know, what our intelligence gaps were, right? You don't want to broadcast that. We do know that Russia had their own UAP UFO program. They continue to have it. We have it. China has it. Other countries have it. It's kind of the worst kept secret at this point.
Dr. Nolan claims that the threat of a foreign adversary collecting crash materials before the U.S. can get to it is the real reason that these clandestine retrieval programs have remained such a closely guarded secret.
This is what should scare people. What happens if China gets to it first? It's pretty clear it's not a U.S. thing. They don't show up in the United States only. So if China and Russia have them, or God help us, Iran, and they get access and understanding to what the technology means first, we might be in a little bit of trouble.
National security concerns that this technology is being hidden in black projects and special access programs have become a major theme of recent congressional hearings.
My concern, whether this technology emanates from us or otherworldly, that we know that we possess it. And where's the accountability? Where are the stopgaps? What are the guarantees that if this were to fall in enemy hands, that it isn't immediately weaponized against us?
That's Representative Andy Ogles at the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Exposing the Truth hearing.
It is clear from my experience and what I've seen that there is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? And Madam Chairman, I would posit that as the legislative body, as the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality. Because we have U.S. personnel who may very well be in harm's way. We have technology that ultimately may threaten our very existence. With that, Madam Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence, and I yield back.
Because of a lack of transparency and presentation of physical evidence, there is still no way to definitively confirm whether the technology being witnessed originated from non-human intelligence, is the work of a secretive black project, or possibly a combination of both. However, with whistleblowers continuing to push for the disclosure of the truth, we may soon actually get the answer. Until then, it's up to the public to push for transparency and follow wherever the evidence leads, even if it's to some pretty dark places. I'm Andy Stumpf, and this has been Black Project, a Change Agents special series.